everybody. Welcome to Horror 101 with Dr. AC. I am Aaron Christensen. Today we're going to be doing a double feature of Spanish horror. And I'm going to be bringing in my pal, John Kitley, to talk about La Residencia, aka The House That Screamed, and ACCION MUTANTE from 1993. So come on in, John Kitley of Kitley's Krypt.
Buenos nachos.
And I want to say, I think both of these films were introduced to me by you. I think I watched both of them over at your place. I want to first start off talking about La Residencia, which is a twisted little flick. And Arrow Video recently put it out on Blu-ray. Both of these films actually just recently received Blu-ray releases. And I didn't realize all the backstory behind La Residencia and its creator, Narcisco Ibanez Serrador. Try and say that 3 times fast. But how did you first come to know it?
Probably, well, obviously the American title, The House That Screamed, when it got released over here. But it was one of those that I don't know if it had gotten released. But when you're, digging in the reference books looking for films and you see one that's highly regarded, I had no idea the background behind it when I was looking for it.
Yeah.
But I remember when I did see it, I was amazed. It's one of those that once you watch it and then you start digging into it, you realize, wait a minute, this isn't a British Hammer film.
Right.
It's Spanish made. But yet it looks like a giallo almost,
right.
Or feels like a giallo. So it's an incredible film. Plus the fact that it is so beautifully shot.
Yeah.
And then you find out that the director also went on to do Who Could Kill a Child, another afternoon, right. Sunday afternoon matinee.
Those are only 2 films.
Well, then he also did the TV series.
Right.
So films to keep you awake.
Stories to keep you awake.
Yeah. So he was, and that was in the 60s. I think it was
66 to 68.
Well, there was 2 seasons, 66 and 67, and then a third season in I think 82.
Right.
But he was introducing the works of Poe and all these literary horror tales to a Spanish community that had I think they had like 2 channels back then.
Right.
Nobody was doing this stuff. And I believe Residencia was the first Spanish film filmed in English.
That's right. That's right.
Well.
It was made for the global market.
Yeah. And with a English cast or on a couple of them. But it's one of those things that it not only blew me away, but to your point, when you get friends that haven't seen it, you need to watch this.
Yeah, it's one that it got showcased in our book Hidden Horror. Darren Callahan wrote on it, but again, thanks to this new Arrow Blu-ray, it has some wonderful special features because you go into the background, you find out about Serrador, and he was kind of the Alfred Hitchcock of Spain because he was presenting these thrilling tales. And he would introduce them kind of like Rod Serling would for his show as well. So he was very popular. And that was probably why he was able to get this film made. It was the highest budgeted Spanish film to date. And that was because he was such a success on television. They're like, okay, we can back this horse. And the film was wildly successful and did break through to the international market. And if you look at some of the documentaries were saying, it's kind of the film that made the Spanish film industry become what it is. It allowed the world to see that Spain could put out quality films. It was seen. I thought this was interesting. They said that it was seen more as a European film than a Spanish film. I'm like, well, Spain is technically in Europe, but I see what they meant.
Well, you have, to me, watching it, the first key that it's Spanish, obviously, other than the director's name, Victor Israel is like the Spanish Michael Ripper, who's in Horror Express. I mean, he's in everything, and he's very identifiable because he's balding. He's got a lazy eye. So when you see him, you're going, there's that guy. So I knew he's Spanish. So you're watching it, you're going, wait a minute, this isn't British.
Right.
Why is he over here?
Right. But it is gorgeously shot. Manuel Berenguer was the DP, and it is so gorgeous. And he had worked on King of Kings. He worked second unit on Dr. Zhivago. He also shot Murders in the Rue Morgue, the Jason Robards one. And this is just a fantastic, this film looks so beautiful. And kind of the premise is that it's set in a girls' boarding school where, you know, they get sent away by their parents to become good little ladies. And the headmistress, played by Lily Palmer, rules the school with an iron fist. And if anybody, you know, gets up in her business, she has a discipline room, a punishment room that she can take you down to. And well, the room lives up to its reputation.
Well, that she has a lead student take them down there to do the nasty bits while she just stands there and watches.
And that student Irina is played by Mary Maud, and she and John Mulder Brown, who plays Lily Palmer's son, were the two British actors. Lily Palmer's a German actress who came to the U.S. and worked with Hitchcock. She did Body and Soul with John Garfield. You know, so we had it, and then a lot of the women, the young ladies in the school, are Spanish. So it was very much an international cast. But we come to find out that several of the students have been running away from the school and disappearing and never being heard from again. And then as we go along, we find out, oh, they're not running away necessarily. They're being disappeared. There is someone murdering the students at the school. And as you said, it's very much like a giallo, and we're wondering who is doing these murders.
Plus, it's not just the whodunit part of it. There's some sequences. The first murder that we see in a greenhouse is literally right out of some of the best Italian giallos. The way it's filmed, the music,
right?
This almost like lullaby, that as the character is dying, the lullaby starts to slow down, like like someone's holding the speed down, and it's just, yes, it's a murder, but it is filmed so elegantly.
Yeah.
That again, you're watching this going, wait a minute, who made this?
Right.
Because it's a gorgeous looking film. And like I said, it kind of looks like a Hammer film with the color and the British properness of it. And, you know, we're creating young ladies. But it's that ending then, whew, out of left field.
Yeah, we're gonna get into spoilers in a second here. Because what Serrador was having to deal with was still latter day Franco. Like Spain was still living under a dictatorship. And so censorship was still pretty strong. And so he had to find ways to, like in this case, you could have a violent sequence, but because it was shot so beautifully and because the music is melodious, it doesn't feel like it's a scare. It's just one of those things where you go, well, I don't know that we can censor this. I guess it's okay. I imagine being, at the censors department going, maybe. But on one of the documentaries, they talked about how, he initially wrote the script to say, there's a shower scene where all the women are taking showers. And he was like, so everybody will be naked in this. And they're like, oh, no. Everybody can't be naked. He's like, okay, so we'll have them in like white nightgowns and they'll shower with their nightgowns on. And they're like, okay, that's all right. But, as they get wet, of course, you could see through the material anyway.
I remember watching that the first time going, what do we, they're literally taking showers dressed.
Yep.
But then you understand why they're doing it. And then technically they should be underage girls, technically. Right. But then, it really doesn't leave a lot to the imagination once they get wet and everything. And then you're going, this is bizarre.
Yeah. Well, on the commentary track, they point out that and that was very much the view of women, is that the female body is not to be seen. It is, it is to be hidden away. And so the idea that these girls would be taking showers with their clothes on, when you see the way this school is run, you're like, oh no, I totally believe that.
Yeah,
I totally believe that you're never naked. You are never, ever naked. But this also calls in some parallels. And I'm going to throw up our spoiler banner now, because there's a lot of parallels to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, in that you have a relationship between a mother and a son, where it's a kind of a domineering. And in Psycho, obviously, we don't see the relationship between Mrs. Bates and Norman. In this one, we do. We see the relationship between Lily Palmer and John Mulder Brown's character. And it is very much you will never, ever find a girl good enough for you. All these girls, they're dirty, they're awful, and you shouldn't be even spending any time on them. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's one of those things that I don't think they play it that heavy-handedly.
Right.
But after you watch the film and the end, then you're going, when you watch it more times, and you're going, well, duh.
Yeah.
But on your first viewing, it's not blatantly overdone where you're like, oh my God, she's just domineering, blah. But the flags are there.
Yeah.
Definitely there.
Yeah. And like Psycho, we have transference of alliance from character to character, because we're following, again, spoiler banners, and I mean it, folks. If you haven't seen this, don't listen to this part. But how we will follow a character and then they die, and then we follow another character and they die, and we have our, you pointed out our head student who likes to dole out the punishment, Irina. After our main character is killed off, our alliance switches to her, and she's been torturing these girls, and you're like, wait, now I'm rooting for you. Yeah. And then she gets killed off, and then suddenly you're rooting for the headmistress, and you're like, what is even happening? Like, how is the director manipulating us so that our alliances keep shifting and keep following?
I love the fact that in the first part of the film, Irene is someone that you are just despising. Oh, yeah. She is a evil, nasty person, but literally in a couple of scenes, all of a sudden you're going, now I'm worried about her.
Yeah.
Right. And it comes across. I mean, the audience buys into it, because now you're caught up into this mystery of, okay, what is going on?
Right.
Because she's out trying to catch this person in the act of either running away or something for devilish need or reasons. But then you're like, okay, wait a minute. Now she's starting to realize, no, these girls are not running away. Something is happening here.
Yeah.
So it's really well done.
And, again, when we find out the ending where, who is actually responsible for the killings, the Psycho flags go off, but you think, as you said, as you're watching it, it's not apparent. It's not something you initially are thinking about. It's only afterwards you're going, hey, wait a minute. There's a lot of things out of the Psycho playbook.
Yeah.
But he handles it so well. He handles it with such a different tone that you don't think about the similarities until someone points it out to you.
Well, not only, it's almost like a double hammer there, because when the reveal of who the killer is, you're going, oh, and then the other reveal, and you're going, oh,
yeah,
shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, he's not just,
yeah,
dear.
Yeah, which is basically then what her reaction is the audience reaction, like, holy shit, are you kidding me?
Yeah. It is a wham bang ending, and we won't spoil that. I'm going to take our banner down. So John Mulder Brown, who plays the son, he actually turns up later in Vampire Circus.
Yep.
He's the son of the doctor,
which is a Hammer film.
It is a Hammer film. And Cristina Galbo, she shows up in several Spanish horror films.
Yeah, she was in. She was also in What Have You Done to Solange?
Solange, the Italian, but she's also in Breakfast in Manchester Morgue, or Living Dead in Manchester Morgue, or Don't Open the Window, or whatever.
We don't have enough time to go through all the
Don't have
titles.
time to go through all the titles for that movie. But yeah, it's a terrific film, and again, Arrow Video has done just a smashing job. Great interviews with John Mulder Brown and Mary Maud, and the original author of the story that Serrador adapted, Juan Tabar, and they interview Serrador's son. And there's a great audio commentary. It's well worth checking out.
And if you ever can find the score by Waldo de los Rios, he also scored Who Could Kill a Child.
Oh,
The score is amazing, and it works so well in the film. And if you're a soundtrack collector, it's really good.
Well, and speaking of people who were inspired by stories to keep you awake, Alex de la Iglesia, who directed ACCION MUTANTE, and there's the cover art for the new release from Severin. But how did you come across ACCION MUTANTE?
That came out in the early 90s. I believe there was an article on it in Fango back then. So, because I remember seeing the image of the girl with the staples in her mouth. So once that hit the bootleg market, definitely had to get a copy of it, and was amazed at how outrageous it is.
Yeah.
The story is basically a band of terrorists that are all deformed or handicapped that kidnap the good-looking and wealthy, and they're not really good at it though. So you're sitting there going, this will never get made in the US, never. It is so politically incorrect, but you're just like, it's a comedy, action, adventure, sci-fi, horror. And there's even, I guess, a couple of musical parts in here too. So, I mean, it hits all numbers, but you're watching this going, what the hell am I watching? But you immediately see Alex de la Iglesia's future, because all of his films, he refuses to stay pigeonholed in one subgenre. He is going to make his film, and it's going to be very unique. And this is no different.
Yeah, for sure. This is his first film. It was also Serrador's first film. So if this became an unintentional double feature of debut features from people who were extremely influential.
Yeah.
So Alex de la Iglesia, please go ahead and tell our viewers a little bit about Alex de la Iglesia, because he's got quite the resume.
He's pretty huge in Spain. This was his first film, and he has been making films ever since. His follow-up film was called Day of the Beast, which Severin released a couple of years ago, which is about a priest that is trying to find the Antichrist to kill him on Christmas Day. And again, comedy, horror, all of those lumped in together. He did one called La Comunidad, or The Commonwealth, which is a twisted film, but hilarious. Witching and Bitching, he recently did one for Spanish HBO called 30 Coins. He's a filmmaker that every time I've watched one of his films, it blows you away on originality, on the style. And if you think you're going to get from point A to point B in a straight line on one of his films, not even close. Not even close.
Well, what was funny was I had forgotten that Pedro Almodovar was one of the producers on this film.
For the first one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I just love that idea of these Spanish, it's like, oh, you made it? Okay, cool. And you just pull the next person up, because De La Iglesia has also been a huge force in helping other Spanish filmmakers find their path.
Yeah.
So I really I loved seeing Almodovar, because he's, easily the most famous Spanish filmmaker on the international realm. But De La Iglesia has absolutely, taken that mantle over the past 20 years and, really run. Well, I guess this is 30 years, right? The celebrating 30-year anniversary. So the basic premise, as you said, is that we have some differently abled terrorists who their leader, Ramon, has been in prison, and he's being released. And the day he's being released is going to be the wedding of what is it? The Arujo Bakery Dynasty the daughter of that of Mr. Arujo, who's a multi-billionaire, and they plan to kidnap her and hold her for ransom, which they do quite ineptly. It's they manage to pull it off, but there are casualties on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, the opening or the sequence with the wedding, and again, you have people being mass murdered with this pop song going during the wedding reception. That you're just like, what am I watching again? Yeah. And these are blood squibs going off. People are dropping like flies, and it's so ludicrous, but it's terrifying. But it's just so damn entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. And you talked about like it does go into sci-fi because like we start off in kind of this weird world where these terrorists are and they that opening sequence of where you get the newscast kind of like detailing who these characters are.
Very RoboCop-ish.
Yeah, and then of course we find out, oh no, we're on a spaceship now. And we're heading for a different planet. You're like, wait, what? There's a spaceship?
Well, I love the fact that, and it obviously takes a lot of cues from RoboCop because you have the news that's always going in and showing news clippings, but you see the police that are like almost like what do you call them in robots? They're huge with all the padding and armor that they're wearing. And they show one of the arrests, and the guy's like, "Policia!" And he goes and immediately just starts beating the guy as he's saying, "You have the right to remain silent." Wham, wham, wham.
Yeah, and I think that's something you could say that De La Iglesia is all about social commentary.
Yes,
and
especially in this one.
And he's about being, politically incorrect. He's pointing up the absurdity of it.
Yeah, to an extreme.
Yeah.
But yet the commentary is still there.
Yeah. And this new video, or rather this new Blu-ray release, and it's a UHD as well.
Yeah.
There's interviews with De La Iglesia, with our writer, who I'm going to put his name up here because I can't even begin to try and pronounce that.
Jorge.
Hey, Jorge G. Have you gone through those supplements yet?
I've watched some of the interviews. There's the section that shows the behind the scenes footage of them filming it, and then the interview with the guy that plays Ramon, Antonio Resin. But it's pretty entertaining. And although I will say, in the original import release, in the opening scene where they're the failed kidnapping of a muscle guy, the theme music is Mission Impossible soundtrack.
Right.
That is not in the HD, the new Blu-ray release, probably because someone said, no, you can't use that. But the original release, it is blatantly the Mission Impossible soundtrack, which actually makes it even funnier.
Yep. And again, it just kind of speaks to his outlaw. He's like, we'll just borrow this. Nobody will notice.
Yeah.
Well, 30 years later, and now that you're this huge international star, they might notice.
Yeah. But it's unbelievable to see the start of his long-lasting career, because it hasn't stopped. And again, I've never been unimpressed. The stuff not only that he's directed himself, but the stuff that he's produced or been involved with. Anything I see his name attached to, I will seek out. And very seldomly have I ever been disappointed. Yeah,
a couple of titles that you didn't mention that I also am a big fan of are Perdita Durango and The Last Circus. I think Last Circus was the first one that I knew who Alex De La Iglesia was. I had seen Day of the Beast, but I hadn't kind of connected the director's name. But seeing Last Circus, I was like, okay, this guy. Oh, and then you look back and go, and you did that, and you did that, and you did that. Okay, I'm going to keep my eye on you.
Yeah. And plus the cast that he uses in this film, you'll see throughout the other films. Alex, and I don't know, I'm not going to pronounce these names right, but Ala Ngula is one of the half of the Siamese twins. He's the main lead in Day of the Beast. A lot of the other guys you'll see pop up in some of his later films or in some other horror films. Cara Ilahalde, who plays the one that's in the braces and stuff, he was in Jaime Balaguero's debut, The Nameless, as well as in Time Crimes from 2007,
Oh,
which
wow. What a great
is
movie.
a fantastic sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, the cast that he brought in, they're just so entertaining. And like we mentioned, when you think the movie's going to go from A to B, hell no, not in this film.
Well, it's funny because both of the films we're showcasing today, neither of them kind of go where you think they're going to go, but their tone could not be more different.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Residencia is so kind of like stately, and this one is just chaos and gore and profanity. And I don't think there's any nudity, actually, now that I think about it.
I don't believe so, no.
There's like people being like eaten by cats.
One cat, a very large mutated alien cat. There is a lot of blood. And again, it's just one of those things that, okay, I know where the story's going, and they get to this planet where the ransom meetup is going to be, and then all of a sudden we're off on this little segue where the Ramon and Frederica are captured by this demented family that make Texas Chainsaw Family look like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Well, and I can't imagine that wasn't deliberate. Like, I think that there is, he's absolutely referencing TCM there.
And one of the sons in the family is Santiago Segura, who also went into being Day of the Beast and is also a huge star in Spain. And I guess the thing that you could really call this film especially, but a lot of Iglesias films, is just insanity.
Yeah.
It's unexpected, it's crazy as hell, but goddamn if they're not entertaining.
Well, and kind of to come full circle, Alex de la Iglesia kind of brought back the Films to Keep You Awake series. He came up with the series of films, and he recruited several of his Spanish horror buddies to do that with him.
The Films to Keep You, I think the Films to Keep You Awake.
Yeah.
He did one of those. Jaime Balaguero did one. Paco Plaza. But then de la
Iglesia may have been kind of the orchestrator behind it.
He might have been, but they also brought back Serrador. He did one of them as well. So he was still around at the time. And I guess it's kind of like playing homage to what he helped create.
Right.
They're continuing that. And that was released on DVD several years ago. And again, highly recommended. The one that De La Iglesia did, as well as the Jaime Balaguero one, are unbelievably entertaining.
Absolutely.
Really, really well done.
Well, I think that's about it. Did you have anything else you want to mention about our films today?
Being that both of them are available, especially ACCION MUTANTE, which is available here in the States.
Yep.
It's very accessible. You have to have this in your collection. Doesn't matter if you're a horror fan, doesn't matter if you're a sci-fi fan. Hell, you can even put romantic comedy in this. It's going to hit all the levels, and it is damn entertaining. And then on the flip side of that, The House That Screamed is a beautiful mystery thriller that kicks you in the nuts like you would not believe at the end. So again, they're two really, really incredible films and give a nice spotlight on Spanish cinema that you might not realize how well they were making them.
That's right. If you're looking for an introduction to Spanish horror, like these, Paul Naschy, because Naschy and Jess Franco were pretty much the only ones making Spanish horror prior to Serrador.
Consistently, yeah. And that was just barely before that.
That's right. That was very early. So both of these films are now available on Blu-ray. So there they are. Come check them out. Keep exploring, keep searching, keep sharing the scare.